But Shane Gillis was fired by Saturday Night Live this week before he ever even appeared on the show. The 31-year-old comedian was announced as one of the new actors on the show, featured players on the show. But some racist routines, I guess, some racist comments that he made on podcasts kind of came out after he was announced as one of the members of the show, and Saturday Night Live, after a social media outcry, fired him.
Yeah, it was a social media outcry, and also there have been social media outcries about other performers before, and they've gotten through. It's like, stay off Twitter for a few months, you'll be fine.
How are you still standing?
Because I'm not on SNL.
Yeah, that's
but if I were, those tweets would come back. But this happens every year. I think his apology was really bad. That, like, I don't know if you heard in the beginning of the podcast, Greg and Eric and I talking about going to Chinatown for food. That's what got him into trouble, because he was not able to talk about having lunch in Chinatown without dropping several racial slurs and doing, like, basically the worst comedy I've ever heard. You know, I mean, just not even that offensive so much or stereotypical as just, like, hacky and stupid. That I think if his apology had been like, hey, that's the worst joke I've ever done, I'm so sorry, you guys, I was just screwing on my podcast, like, please don't judge me on that, I think he may have been okay. But him being like, you know what, sometimes you got to take chances, and I'm not going to apologize for taking a chance of doing a Chinese accent. You're like, get out of my face. And so I tweeted, as someone who enjoys these things, I tweeted, I truly enjoy the annual tradition of trying to destroy a new SNL performer on the happiest day of their life, all right? This is like an hour after they announce he's going to be on. He's so happy, and then all this comes down. I meant in that tweet that I truly enjoy watching this. And every single person who commented on my Twitter is like, I can't believe you have this guy's back. I can't believe you're, like, standing up for this guy. And there's a lot of comics who are like, let's get rid of cancel culture. This is ridiculous that he's being kicked off for what are jokes. The joke thing doesn't matter here. There's such bad jokes.
Right.
It's not like he's a psychopath who's just, like, doing hate crimes on the air. He's just not that good. And he looks like someone I would never, ever defend. He looks like all the things he's accused of doing.
Right. He looks like a guy who commits hate crimes.
He looks like a guy they were like, hey, do you want to dress up like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man for Halloween? And he got sick of it halfway through and was like, you know what? I don't need the costume. I'm just going to go like this. So I'm not like, I don't think this is like a loss for comedy. I don't think this is a loss for anything. I think it might be a good thing in the long run that comedians do less of this. But people clearly hated him in Philadelphia, claimed he was a racist and a jerk. And, I mean, this was ready to go. It wasn't like they searched his tweets. Someone was waiting to put out this video of him doing the podcast. I'm just annoyed, and I don't explain my jokes on Twitter. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But to think that I'm backing him up when I'm literally saying how much I'm enjoying watching this happen to him is ridiculous. So
the statement he made on Instagram was terrible.
Yeah, the statement, the defense was terrible, and then his statement back of I'm not going to be on the show, no hard feelings, I'm a mad TV guy anyway.
This is the
worst
context.
Line.
It's ridiculous. So he goes, it feels ridiculous for comedians to be making serious public statements, but here we are. I'm a comedian who was funny enough to get to SNL. That can't be taken away. Of course I wanted an opportunity to prove myself at SNL, but I understand it would be too much of a distraction. I respect the decision they made. I'm honestly grateful for the opportunity. I was always a mad TV guy anyway.
Yeah, they can never take it away from me. They took it away from you. Like who? Like I don't understand what happens to this guy now. I know people who've been on SNL for 1 year, and then they have great careers. You look at Sarah Silverman. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything on SNL, and now it was like amazing. And then there are people like Brooks Wheelan, who you like hear every now and again. You're like, oh yeah, they were on SNL for a year. I don't think this guy does anything. I don't know who rallies around him or supports him.
Everyone that supported him, and I saw a few people on Twitter, clearly didn't actually listen to the material that he did. They were just like, hey, comedians have to be truth tellers, and you're not gonna get to the funny without hurting a few people's feelings. And there's no way they actually listened to the podcast or anything that he was saying, because none of it wasn't just that it wasn't funny, it was just pointless.
I'm the edgiest, most offensive comic and maybe in the history of the genre once all is said and done. You know what I mean? It's not my place to say that, but I'm definitely top 5. I'm definitely up there. There's an argument to be made that I am the most offensive and everything that people are saying this guy stands for. Never in my life would I do a fake Chinese accent to make fun of my waiter or use a racial slur on a podcast or anywhere else.
Or keep referring to using the racial slur later in the podcast as like, that was the best joke I made the whole podcast.
Yeah, it's like you're not that. Like the humor offends me more than the actual content of it. So I have no problem with this guy not getting the job. And again, it's not like he was going to be president and now we're losing out on something great. It's like he's just a guy. He's just one of those generic white guys they hire every year. Never gets on the air. And at the end of the year, they're gone. So this is no loss. Just please do not think that I support him in any way. I feel like every week on this podcast, I've got to come on and clarify some remark I've made in the press or on Twitter. But every single comment on this tweet is like, why would you defend him? And every person I know is like, no, I totally got what you're saying. So maybe my sarcasm button is broken, but so is everything else in this fucking studio.
Our next story on the podcast, Anthony complains about the studio and writes his Twitter wrongs, is about a woman who swallowed her engagement ring while sleepwalking. You don't really need that much more to the story than that. California woman Jenna Evans, who often sleepwalks, thought she had a dream about swallowing her 2.5